Alrighty, stream looks good. And we are up. How is my audio doing? Yeah, it looks fine as long as the game's actually up. Yep. Come on. Let's get going. Stream for a couple hours, and then we go and record the next video. Hopefully some people come in, we can say hello, and get a nice quick upload in one after the other. I was glad you guys did Imperial Guard for the vote because, well, it was nice and quick, and I could get the game going pretty immediately, honestly. I do not want to play Emmerich. He takes too much attention. Who haven't I played on stream just yet? Actually, have I played an Elven faction on stream yet? I don't think I have. Maybe I should try one of each. That seems fair. God, I hate Eltharion. Emmerich is really the only one who I like, because he gets nice units. And we'll see. We'll see. I'll see if the Eye of the Vortex campaign has anything decent. I mean, see, all the DLC lords are in here, but I kind of don't like any of them. Rapunzel isn't bad, but just in comparison to the other lords of that same type, I don't like her as much. Like, not just DLC lords, but just, like, available via some fun console commands and stuff. Fan Transfers I never play as. I don't play as the French, for pretty legitimate reasons, I think. Let's go with Kolek. I do like Kolek. Kolek is fun. Kolek is big boy. Big boy with big hammer. Very simple character, but a very fun one. And also, just the Dragon Ogre Shadowgoth lore is very nice. Yeah. I like the original Dragon Ogre Shadowgoth lore. It was, their lightning-powered, mountain-sized monster creatures that would get crazy overpowered or crazy nerfed, depending on, like, how the winds of magic were flying. And I was a big fan of that. Hopefully it'll load up quick. Honestly, the Chaos campaigns are not terrible. And I think his particularly is very fun. Probably run through this, I think, for 2 hours. I should be done by 11, and then I can make a video at 11, and then I can post it by midnight. And if I do that, I can get a pretty decent timer up, you know. One video every 24 hours is a little bit much to ask, but I think it's a nice gift for me to give to y'all now that we're all here. It's always roughly 20 minutes before I get anyone in, so let's see about that. And honestly, one of the things that I've noticed that I found really interesting with you guys is that you guys watch my videos a majority of the time at like noon to 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. And I was wondering, I was like, why is that? Why do they always watch in the middle of the week? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, I post on the weekends, which means most people go through their recommendeds by Wednesday, and they've reached videos that they're subscribed to, but don't have a lot of subscribers. I would assume that's why, but I don't know everyone's browsing habits, so it might be a little bit different. That's just what occurred to me, because I was like, I wonder why all of you watch on Wednesday. Because that seems to be, weirdly enough, the highest day. And most people should be about done with work by now, or chilling out and doing what they need to. But either way, man, taking a bit of a brick to load. Come on. I would like to spawn my horrible creatures across the stars. It's time to begin the nightmare march, the murder march. Got plenty of drinks, so I shouldn't have to take a break during this one. I got so hoarse during the Titan video, because I know how I said at the beginning, I'm like, I'm going to try and make the videos more watchable, I'm going to try and make them less than an hour. I don't keep a timer, and I can't see my own internal timer when I'm making videos. So when I make claims like, oh, it's going to be a short video, or oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be more watchable, and it turns out to be an hour and a half long, forgive me. I don't have any way to judge how long I'm yapping about any one subject, and I do not time or test out the presentations ahead of time. So especially when I kind of get hit by that brain burst of like, maybe that is something that I should talk about. That really gets me into like, I was just talking about the same thing for 30 minutes. Oh, No, please don't crash. No, wait for the program to respond, please. Oh no. I'm gonna be so pissed if it makes me restart this. Come on. Work. Work, damn you. Do your job. Come on, War Machine. Let's go. Alright, well, we try again. That's very frustrating. It's fine, though. We just do it again. Launch it again. Do this here. Make this little small thing. A little long. There you go. Chat's the right size. Continue campaign. See, I don't know if that'll start me off in the right spot or if it'll start me off where I was last time. Man, that's kind of annoying. Wish it didn't do that, but I guess I don't really have a choice, do I? See, I can make chat even bigger. I can actually move you guys over here, and then I can make you absolutely big chat. Holy shot, talk about timing? Yeah, what did I say? See, everyone comes in on Wednesday in the middle of the day, and I'm like, huh, why is it always Wednesday? Why is everyone coming on Wednesday? And I have no idea why. I couldn't imagine why. Unless it is that, all of their recommendeds have been gone through. Oh no, it's playing a Skaven campaign. This must have been something I was playing on my own. I think it was. But yeah, for some reason it crashed and now I'm having to restart. I'm probably going to go back and play Kolek anyway because I was in the mood for that. Just finished up making Regiment in Holy War. Yay! Lovely. What kind of regiment was it? Speaking of which, this is the pre-making Imperial Guard video stream, so I'm chilling, and we're going to talk Imperial Guard, or whatever you guys want to talk about, until about 11, and then I'm going to make the video, post it for you guys by midnight, and take a nap, because that's 2 videos within 24 hours, and the cycle has made some pretty good time. Honestly, I was expecting the video to take me longer, because I honestly made it at work, and it wasn't too bad. Armored Recovery? Oh, Only War like the Discord server? I was part of that for a while. I enjoyed that. I was actually, I was a big fan of that. I ran campaigns. But I also played it myself. Exit window. Armored Recovery is nice. You don't really hear about it because usually it's going to be a TTRPG game. Oh, yeah, I know, but there's also a Discord specifically for, like, a modified version of that for Discord. A little bit like Corrupt Contenders is actually kind of what inspired the, my game system, was playing that. There we go, come on, let's play. Alright. Armored Recovery you don't hear about a lot because, well, a lot of the IG vehicles are too big to be realistically recovered. Like, you couldn't recover a Baneblade all that easily. You would need, like, a couple of Mastodons or, like, super heavy transit vehicles in order to do that. Or more likely, you'd have to airlift it with a very large aircraft or repair it on the spot. But for the Leman Russ, we don't really see a lot of armored recovery vehicles, but they definitely exist. And I assume that they are like that. Just me and the group picking from the rulebook? Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that you're part of that. I'm just saying I remember that, and I was a big fan of it. But yeah. I think that a lot of the designed vehicles in 40k don't get a lot of use. The Leman Russ kind of overshadows every other tank. The Malkador is like the hipster pick for tanks. But honestly, I think that almost every world, especially all industrial worlds, would probably have their own localized version of just a battle tank or a light or medium or heavy tank. Regardless of basically anything. No matter what their tech level, no matter what their design stuff, there's nothing stopping a random world from making, a tank, theoretically. And, of course, armored recovery vehicles come with that. I would like post-battle loot, please. Always good to have post-battle loot. Creation points to turn space tow trucks into heavy combat engineers, siege, and engineering gear. Give them an Aztec theme and names. That is very cool. Aztec names are a little bit complicated, but it's still very cool. I wish I could program a system that complicated, but since I'm doing a holistic system where you do every single portion of combat like semi-manually, one that's focused a little bit more on RP than anything else, I felt like that level of granularity I could leave to the Imperial Guard fans. And when I did Chaos, I would go against that, or at least I would find a better way to do it. But yeah, I respect people who are willing to do that. That's a ton of work to do. And I think even Only War, for its part, a really good game system and very fun, still had a lot of issues with, like, being kind of granular in ways that were a bit frustrating. At least to me. That was my experience. I was looking through it after playing Black Crusade, and I was like, oh my god, this is way more complicated. Or at least it seemed to be. And, you know, I don't dislike complicated. However, I do dislike complicated and granular, especially when you're, like, making character sheets and stuff. Local horde buildings. Honestly, I kind of don't want this building. I don't have a choice to get anything else, because Chaos has terrible rules. Yeah. Honestly, yeah, streamline and grind stuff down. Big thing with me, yeah, I'd agree with that. But I think a really cool idea with RPGs is to do what kind of Black Crusade does, where everything is progressive. So there's, like, a couple of very basic systems for progression, but everything works towards progression, so it's not like you're stuck in eternal limbo trying to figure out what the hell to do. You're pretty easily able to identify, like, oh, I need to do X or Y thing in order to get, you know, whatever result I want. So it's like, oh, I need to do this many killings in order to get a new blessing, or I need to do this many, like, achievement missions, or get these items in order to gain this mutation, or whatever it was. I liked that with Black Crusade. I liked how straightforward it was. And I'm not that smart, so I was genuinely like, ah, yes, game that makes it easy for my dumb lizard brain to understand. And loot and raise. Who doesn't love loot and raise? Gotta be my favorite. Gotta be one of my favorite ways to end any battle at any time. Setting for the game is Anbanar, EU4 mod. Oh. Oh, yeah. I got you. Very nice. I'm kind of happy that we're going to Imperial Guard, because as much as I love Titans, it was starting to become like the Gene Stealers, where I was like, okay, now I'm talking about Gene Stealers and Tyranids for the 4th time in, like, 2 weeks. I was getting very, very fed up with Gene Stealers, especially. You can tell, because each Gene Stealer video was already short, and then the last one was like 37 minutes, and about 50% of it was me just saying, I've said it before, it's this, it's exactly this, don't worry about anything else, this is what it is. Yeah, 40k in a D&D setting? Yeah. See, I'm always interested in how you do, like, conditions for 5e, because, like, severe injury is something that is very common in 40k, and yet is really, really hard to do in an RPG system. Like, how does losing an arm affect your character? Or how does, you know, being severely wounded in a battle negatively affect your character? A lot of people really hate that. They dislike the idea of, like, oh, my character could be crippled, and it has, like, actual repercussions on their combat ability or on their ability to do stuff. And they don't like that. But I honestly didn't have that much of an issue with it. And on top of that, I was a really big fan of like not the granular system, but the way that Black Crusade would do, like, curses and boons. And they would give you things that were like, oh, it's a negative mutation. I think my favorite one was eye stalks. It made it so that, like a snail, your eyes had these little bilious tubules that they, like, stuck out of your face on, and it gave you a bonus. It allowed you to have, like, bonuses to your perception, because you could see, like, behind yourself and such, but it also had the negative of, like, the eyeballs could get stuck together or twist around one another, and you would get, like, injuries, or you would get, like, you know, something. It was some negative to go with the, like, minor positive, and I liked that a lot. I liked the idea of, like, mutations being both positive and negative, because they are. Mutations in 40k are supposed to be both. Yeah, rolling on crit tables, you get too high, you lose a limb, or you have your stats degrade permanently. Yeah, That was super nice. I liked the crit rate things. Though the other thing was, since we were playing with, like, a World Eater who became a Demon Prince, and, like, Emperor's Children and Sorcerers and stuff, the psychic damage and the, like, chain weapon damage just got so insanely high that anything we touched got blended into red mist. And I'm talking, like, Grey Knights and Terminators and such. We would just eat them. Like, we would eat them each, one in turn. It was me as a blood-packed soldier in human pattern Terminator armor with like a relic chainsword and a Demon Prince World Eater, and we were up against like 10 Black Legion Terminators. We turned them into red mist in like 3 rounds, and neither of us suffered a single wound. It was hilarious. Because our DM was like, there's none of them left. You've already killed them in like 2 turns. They got to shoot you maybe once. So, yeah. I thought the damage curve could have used a little bit of finagling, but Brother Kalkianis? Yeah, I think I heard the name once. I do have a friend who's running Deathwatch, and he seems to be a big fan of it, but I don't know if he's got anyone to play with him right now. I would like bonus attack damage, please, and I would also like to take this one little area. Easy dub. Easy dead dwarves. Nobody likes dwarves. Die dwarves. Oh, that's not true. Not everyone dislikes dwarves. I dislike dwarves. Very different thing. Hearts of Iron. Funny reference, Heart of Iron. Ha 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 ha, funny. Not really. Okay. Yeah. See, this is the pain of running a Chaos Horde faction in this game. I need money. I need money! I am broke! Using the chapter creation rules, you create some broken talents and run at like 60 miles per hour. Yeah! And here's the funny thing. Some Space Marine fans would tell you that that's totally canon and definitely possible to run that speed and continue to fight. You will never convince me that Space Marine fans are not just deluded. Like they're downright crazy sometimes, if I'm being honest. Like it's not bad. It is a good thing that they like their faction and that they get so much supply for it, but it feels like quite a bit of the time they get high on their own supply and then they say absolutely insane shit. Or the authors who are writing for them turn the insane stuff that they would be saying into an actual book, and then it muddies up the canon because, well, they're just writing it because they can and maybe not because they should. Strong enough to throw people high. Dude picked up the Khan Betrayer and threw him and killed him with fall damage. Honestly, if you're fighting Khan the Betrayer in a TTRPG, I don't think there's a way... I don't think there's a canon way to put him down permanently. Because he has almost the same rule that Angron and Lucius do, which is... Khorne likes him so much that he will just bend the rules of thought and time to bring him back. Also, killing a boss with falling damage is cringe. You know, no offense to any DMs, but I think that having a boss die due to falling damage is just cringe. Like, unless it's really well set up and you, like, knock them down a shaft or something really specific, cringe. Not fun. Not really all that engaging. Oh my goodness, what is this? Pendant of Slaanesh. Oh, holy crap, that's a lot of melee attack. And speed. And Chaos Corruption. I will take it, thank you. Yeah. See, oh yeah, that's another thing. Who's that Carcharodon's chapter master? He's got the... He's a Carcharodon, he's a space shark. Tyberos? Oh god, oh my lord. Tyberos is getting as bad as Cato Sicarius. For real. For real. Tyberos is getting as, like, loved and absolutely obsessive with people as Cato Sicarius is. But, like, the meme hasn't come full circle, so people genuinely think he's the best thing since sliced bread. And nobody actually looks up the lore of the Carcharodons and realizes how depressing they are as a chapter, and how they literally have something close to the Black Rage, but it's, like, depression. They're literally Marines with depression, or with... like, OCD, insane, obsessive tendencies. Because at a certain point, they don't, become crazy or get angry or have visions. They just feel utterly, like, incapable of doing what they want to do, and so they just kind of wander off into the stars solo and decide that they want to fight Chaos that way, or at least their heart tells them they want to do that, and I find that incredibly sad. And I think, given their mutations, by the way, pale skin, black eyes, big fans of being space-bound and striking from the darkness, tell me these guys are not using Chimeric Nightlord Gene Seed. Tell me that's not the case. I won't believe you, but you can lie. Yeah, I don't hate them. I like their idea. And I think, yeah, their Depresso gene flaw is incredibly sad. But another thing, I honestly think that is related to the stock that they come from. And if I am going in, yeah, there's definitely some Curs in them. Oh my god, that for sure. Especially because they're out in the Ghoul Stars. They're with other Night Lords. Honestly, if a Night Lords and a Carcharodon ship passed in the night, and you didn't have any colors to distinguish them, and you just went in among the Marines, pretty solid chance you couldn't tell the difference. Like, I'm going to be 100% real with you. I don't think I could tell the difference if you took the colors away. Black eyes, black hair, distant demeanor, cold, unfriendly, getting consistently more depressed over time. Yeah, sounds like the average Night Lord warband which isn't led by some crazy fanatic. I say that like there's not a bunch of warbands led by crazy fanatics, but, you know, what lore do we have on Night Lord warbands? We have Krieg Arquebus, who's a goddamn Chaos Prince, which is the farthest thing from normal for Night Lords who don't worship Chaos, or didn't used to worship Chaos. You know, we'll talk about that when we get to the Night Lords. There's two different sides to the Legion now. There's the side that have gone mega cringe, and there is the side that has become depressed, essentially. Very depressed. We have two types of Night Lords. There are Taloses, and there are... Oh, what's that one dude? Not Sarl. Freaky Loyalist chapters out on the fridges. Oh, yeah, no, and the Cursed Founding chapters. I'm a big Black Dragons fan. Not just because they're probably salamanders mixed with Night Lords, or salamanders mixed with, like, Thousand Suns. I like those. I like those, like, weird combos from the Cursed Founding. But, for real, I think that a large number of those Cursed Founding chapters have some pretty cool lore to them. And I'm a big fan of the Black Dragons because I like their whole, well, we're corrupted, but we're loyal. And everyone keeps thinking we're not loyal. And we are loyal. And we've proven it a lot. But nobody believes us. I like that. I like that, I like that mechanic with them. Oh my god, there's nothing good. Chaos Knights and Chosen, that's really the only good units in this entire build, and I don't have enough money to get Chosen. God damn it. Alright, well, I may as well get Huntmasters. They're kind of worth it. Let's get some Frontline Bruisers. Some of these boys. Fill back up to 18 units. Yeah, Black Dragons do rock. I always have theories about chapters that should fall to Chaos or would fall to Chaos with the right push. I'm a big Lamenters fan. Not necessarily their lore, but I really like the concept of them. And I am a big fan of Blood Angels who don't act like Blood Angels, which is one of the reasons that I like the Lamenters as well. But they're so darn loyal. They're so tough. It would, like, with the Black Dragons, I could justify turning some of them to Chaos. I could especially justify turning some of the, actually mutated ones to Chaos, because all you'd really have to do is introduce a demon into the mix, and then you have a pretty solid chance that the brother is going to turn. Not a 100% chance. They are Marines, after all, and they can shake some wild stuff, but it makes it much more likely. And the cool thing with the Lamenters is they don't really have that weakness. They don't really have that problem as much. Because they're loyal to a fault, to the point where it actually harms them to be loyal, and they continue doing it anyway. Which is quite based of them, I would say. Quite based. Tower of Karak. I don't want to go there. Also, the Lamenters Chapter Master, I forget who it is now, because the last one died. And it's a new guy who is, like, relatively fresh. But I don't remember his name. No, I don't want Sigvald. Nobody wants Sigvald. Sigvald is gross. Ew. Ew. Gross. Chaos's little pet dog, Sigvald. See, I love how, you know, Chaos has all these strong, powerful units, and 90% of Chaos armies are just ranged skirmish archers and dogs. That's it. That's all that I need. Starcrusher, yeah. The Gunnarsson Kron. Containing every single native that's Howies on the high seas. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pendant of Slaanesh. Ooh, Potion of Healing. That is actually better. That is straight up better, especially with Kolek. Kolek has so much health, he benefits a lot from regeneration. Yep. Pretty solid. Oh, another thing. I was thinking recently because I was talking with a friend about Dark Eldar, and it occurred to me something that I never thought about before, and I'm like, can Dark Eldar turn to Chaos? Like, I think it would take very specific circumstances for it to happen, but I think that it's not impossible. And I think the easiest way for it to happen would be for Dark Eldar to feed off of a bunch of Chaos-possessed souls, or Chaos-afflicted people, like people with Chaos corruption, and they eat a bunch of them and basically devour their suffering, and then they're sucking in Chaos corruption with that. I don't know if that would make the sustenance more or less rewarding. Would it mutate them? Would it afflict them? Would it cause them to become more vulnerable to Slaanesh or more resistant? Does it act like a vaccine almost? You know, give them a little bit of corruption here, a little bit there, in certain doses, and maybe it makes them even more durable against the soul suckening. I don't know. It occurred to me, and I was like, that's kind of an interesting concept. I might play around with that at some point. At some point. You know, how to turn every race to Chaos. That would be a fun video. That'd be a fun video. Hard for sure. I'd have to spend a couple of hours justifying it for everyone, but I think it would be fun. Especially if when I got to Orcs, because Orcs do canonically turn to Chaos, and they do canonically worship Khorne. And Gork and Mork are essentially aspects of Khorne, depending on what version of the lore that you're reading. And in either way, since Khorne feeds off of most violence, basically anything that the Orcs do will please him. Whether he respects them enough to deign to look at them or not, I guess that's kind of irrelevant at that point, because who cares? They be fighting. Oh, dude, you are so dead. Why did you think it was a good idea to fight me? That was like the worst possible decision you could have made. Like, am I wrong, or do I have an unbelievable advantage here? I think I straight up just win. Like, he has no range, no ability to counter any of my stuff, and I basically 100% outmove his army. Why did it say I had a valiant defeat here? This is weird. I don't like how this is pretending that I'm not doing good. I'm doing good. Best description of the proper use of Space Marines recently: if the guard and their enemy are boxers, Marines are someone who runs into a ring, kicks them in the balls, and runs. Very correct, and I talked about during the adversaries video, they don't stick around. They're not a long fighting unit. And I think another thing to think about is Marines are Marines. Think of them in the context of like the U.S. Marine Corps. They have a very specific job, right? They go, they invade, they break open the gates, essentially, to the place that needs to be attacked. They don't stick around afterwards. No, they're on their ships again, going and doing the next island invasion. You know, Marines' entire battle strategy is basically island hopping from World War II. That's basically it. And they're built for that. They're built for short deployments with relatively good odds of success. That's the other thing. They are not designed to go into losing battles. If there is a fight that they are absolutely 100% not going to win, they're not going to participate. Why would they? You know, throwing Marines into a losing fight is a terrible idea, and basically no chapter master who didn't have someone holding a gun to their head would do that. That's why we only hear about Space Marine victories, because they never lose, because they never join losing fights. The only time where they do lose is when they join a fight that they had to and they were forced into it, or it's a fight that they thought they could win and they were tricked and they couldn't actually win it in reality. Somebody sent a nice comment. That's a nice comment. See, I love it when people leave their kind thoughts, and honestly, y'all have way too high of an opinion of me. I need to keep myself humble. I am just a humble shit poster. That's not really true, but I am definitely not any type of professional or authority, and I feel like I often make myself out that way, but it's not true. I'm not a genius. I'm not very talented. I'm just here doing something that other people usually don't. And I suppose if that's enough for people to like what I do, good deal. Good deal. Hmm. Oh man. See, this is the annoying thing with macroing these guys. They're fast, they're quick, they're very spammy. But once they break away, they don't tend to chase down anything else all that aggressively. Yep, nope. Trolls are done. Yeah, this is gonna be an easy win. What the heck was that auto-resolve talking about? Yeah, this dude is absolutely dummy thick, but he has no chance. Yep, dead to attrition. Dead to attrition instantly, basically. Dead to a million arrows. Yep, death by arrows. All right, now here's the fun part. Here's where we do the funny. Yep, you're going here. You're getting healed. You're going here. You are attacking these trolls. 1, 2, 3. Slowing it down, getting it going. Nice and easy, and then straight up just toss all the axes, throw all the ranged weapons, toss it all into the way, and that's pretty much game. That's just it. I mean, that was easy. That took no effort. Yeah. Quick thing. I'm kind of going back and forth between screens here. I apologize, but I am still going on. This is just going to be a pretty easy fight, honestly. Again, game proving to me that I am way better than it thinks it is. Surprise and contemplation. That's what I have for this fight. And I think that some Marines are more talented at that kind of kick in the nuts fight than anything else. That's going to be a pretty solid deal, TBH. Alrighty, and that's good. Easy. Easy. Didn't even have to try. Decisive victory. Crunge. Aztec theme regiment. The drawbacks: tainted and ecclesiarchy doesn't like them, so we made them worship Big E through blood sacrifice. Very Aztec. Also very Imperial. I'd like to add, the ecclesiarchy doesn't like a lot of different religious sects. However, important note, they can't fucking do anything about it. I feel like people dramatically overestimate how unified Imperial religion is. It isn't. There's no agreed upon doctrine to the ecclesiarchy. There literally cannot be. Because you can't tell a feral world barbarian what the Emperor actually is. He will not understand, no matter how many times you explain it. So, converting them to the ecclesiarchy's way of official religion is pointless and incredibly counterproductive. All you have to do is install a big-ass golden statue of the Emperor and let them worship it the way they want to. Because 95% of the time, it's going to have the same exact effect, and you don't have to have religious wars all the time. Downside, Chaos likes to use that to mess with you, but that's good for me, a Chaos worshiper. So, on one side, I am biased towards wanting that to be the case, and on the other hand, the ecclesiarchy agrees with me, because they don't institute their religion universally on the same level. There's only a couple of tenets that you have to agree on. The Emperor is a god, and he is the god of humanity. He is a great figure that you need to worship and obey, and anyone who represents him, you should also obey. You can't worship people, just the God Emperor, and saints. That's an also important thing. Everybody forgets about this. Plenty of worlds actually recognize saints as just as important as the God Emperor. And this is a thing that happens in the Sabbat Worlds Crusade. Saint Sabbat is basically given her own worlds that worship her more fervently than the actual Emperor. Like, they're on the path, but she's seen as a literal manifestation of God. She's God to them. And they don't differentiate between them, other than the fact that, like, oh, well, she's a saint. She's not actually the God Emperor, but they worship her like she's a god. And I'm like, okay, well, if a saint can reach that level of importance, even given she's a living saint, but still, that means that any backward feral world that happened to have a very important person or someone they deemed religiously important arrive, they could set up a statue and pretty reasonably worship them as a god. Totally possible. Totally possible. Army of Sisters looking at a planet, the religion mutated immediately. Oh, yeah, well, like an army of sisters looking at a planet, the religion mutated immediately? Oh, yeah. So, yes, if there are a bunch of ecclesiarchy representatives, they tend to try and encourage the correct doctrine, but, you know, it won't often be through war. It'll be through, like, council or discussion or religious tutoring. Like, legitimately, going down, religious tutoring. Also, yeah, Low Gothic. I love Low Gothic, because it's the idea that not only are we kind of like, you know, Tower of Babbling people, where, yeah, we're all speaking the same language, you know, Pig Latin, but it's not the same language. It's Germanic, it's Vandal, it's Gothic, it's Hunnish, it's all these different Proto-European and Proto-Asian languages. Another great thing, I love regiments that take directly from, like, cultures. I'm going to talk in the Imperial Guard video about the Drukian Fen Guard and about the Finrate Highlanders. I have a very personal connection to the Finrate Highlanders. My Black Crusade character, who I played for almost 2 years and who's become a very central part of my mythos, so to speak, he was a Finrate Highlander who was converted to Chaos by the Blood Pact, and he served in their armies during the Sabbat Crusade. And that's where he got his veterancy, and that's why he was a veteran to start the Black Crusade game. Because he'd been a fighter since he was a boy. Very young man, because their regiment is familial, it's clan-like. So, fathers train sons, mothers train daughters, type deal. And again, none of this is lore, none of this is canon. I just made it because I like filling in gaps with fun things, and, yeah. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing, and believe me, I do it a lot with the Imperial Guard, because, let's be honest, about half of all Imperial Guard regiments, all the lore on them is a name, a planet they come from, and maybe something that they did once. A lot of them don't even say what type of regiments they have, which, hello, obviously that's an important thing to know, but yeah, it's frustrating to me, and a lot of the time I just fill that shit in. Like, oh, they're Scottish, and they're light infantry? Yeah, I know exactly how that looks. Like, they're Highlanders. Self-explanatory. There was an upped German levels of Krieg to 11. It's got fancy not God Emperor, and their low Gothic is just Navy German. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, someone who speaks a good bit of German, I am a big fan. I'm a big fan of the Death Korps of Krieg, as much as they get the short end of the realism stick. Because big numbers go burr. I'm not against big numbers go burr, but I am against doing it all the time. And not having any, variety or logic to it. Why do they have such big numbers? Because they die a lot. Then why are they so good at their job? God damn it. That's one of the things that frustrates me. It's like, dude, the Death Korps should not be having this high of a death rate if they are equipped to the level they are. Because, people look at the Kriegers and they're like, oh, World War I, they must be human waves. No, the Kriegers' equipment is actually pretty damn good. Other than their lasguns, which are kind of like trade-off weapons that could be good, could be bad. Greatcoats are nice. Their chemical equipment is insane. Like, they're more chemically protected, the Death Korps of Krieg are, than almost any other regiment save, like, the Savlar Chem Dogs. Other than them, the Kriegers are probably the most NBC-hardened regiment ever. Ever. And people call them, like, a cheap body regiment. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Not to mention, they have tank regiments, artillery regiments, chemical warfare engineers, super heavy tanks. They're hardly a meat unit. They're just big. Yeah, the specialized force built for siege and death worlds. I mean, they're built for everything. They're built for everything. It's a war world. They have so many different types of regiments because, essentially, they can maintain that output. They can maintain the output of men, equipment, all that stuff. Because they build it underneath the soil. And also, the fact that they have insane discipline, by the way, way overstated the whole insane discipline thing. Well, not necessarily totally overstated, just a little bit overblown in some of the lore. They treat them like they're suicidal. It's not the case. They're definitely not suicidal. I would not put them at that level of, like, madness. They're just very, very militant and religious. Maccabi and Janissaries are a similar thing where people are like, oh, they're just willing to commit suicide for the Emperor. They're forgetting the if it's necessary part, because, yes, the Maccabians do blow themselves up on occasion in order to kill something. It's usually when they're gonna die anyway. So, one of the things that I like to see from the Siege of Rax is a Death Korps of Krieg Grenadier, like, grabs a crack grenade and hugs a Chaos Space Marine, basically, and detonates on him. And I'm like, yeah, that makes plenty of sense. And then people just go, oh, look, Death Korps of Krieger kills himself. I'm like, no, he's killing an enemy. He just also happens to die in the process. This is not the same thing. This is not the same thing. Not at all. I also like the fact that in the Siege of Rax, they show that the Death Korps can break and run. They do break to morale. People treat them like they're totally immune to morale. Not the case on tabletop or in lore. I don't know where this idea comes from. I mean, yeah, they'll walk into enemy fire as long as there's a purpose to it, and they'll follow orders as long as it's not completely insane, but they do break to morale. They break at the gates. They run away when it's basically a bloodthirster charging at them. I would run away too. Anyone would run away. It's a fucking bloodthirster. You're not going to fight that with your Lucius 98. Like, not happening. And they know that. They're not stupid. People treat them like they're stupid, and I dislike that, because no force in 40k is abjectly stupid. Except possibly the orcs. I might make an excuse for them. Lots of regiments get adopted by Space Marine fans who forgot they're humans. Ooh, that is a hot take. That is a hot take. Oh boy, I'm not sure if I can. I'm kidding. I absolutely agree with you. I'm being funny. Um, well, I don't know. Maybe it is part of the Space Marine effect. I think you have a good point there. That's definitely something to look into. How the Space Marine effect affects regiments. But I wonder, like, could we say? Oh, Cadians want. Never mind. Cadians are like the poster boys for that, where becoming the poster boy makes you better than any other regiment ever. Even though, to be honest, Cadia makes a lot of regiments, and they make a lot of combined arms regiments, but it's still for one purpose basically, which is to defend Cadia. And they do go out into the galaxy in other areas, but a majority of Cadian regiments stay near the eye, or like at least within spitting distance of it in case something bad happens. Generally, yeah. People treating regiments like they're not human has been happening for a while. And, there's nothing much we can do about it, There's nothing much we can, we can say or, like, do to change people's minds on that, because what are we going to say? Oh, you have to make them weaker. Nobody's going to buy that. This is 40K. They don't want to do that. I don't even want to do that for the forces that I like. I'm not going to say I'm unbiased. When I see Chaos Cults doing something cool, I literally go, hell yeah! They're the boys! We got this! And then they get their asses kicked every time, because human Chaos Worshippers are not allowed to win, ever, unless it's the Sabbat Worlds. We never win. We literally never win. Swear to God. Krieg recently, yeah. Get the Ultramarine treatment. Very good regiments, but still just guard. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the best thing about the Kriegers, which, they never use this. Super stupid that it's not, because it's what their whole build is about. Every single time that Krieg goes into a battle, they should be using chemical weapons. Every single time. But I literally think that the reason why they're not portrayed as using chemical weapons all the time is because it would mess up the, like, visual ability to identify things on the battlefield. Krieg Grenadiers, they have gas grenades on them. Basically, all of them have, like, dozens and dozens of gas grenades. They should be using them all the time. They have nothing to fear from gas weapons. Pretty much. They are one of the most NBC-protected units in 40K. They should be using gas all the time. Their artillery regiments should be blanketing the battlefield in gas. And that's another reason why Krieg generally deploys by itself. People are all excited about, like, oh, Krieg's deploying. They only need their own regiments. Like, no. They just don't want to gas other Imperials who happen to be on the battlefield. Like, they should be using poison gas in almost every fight where they have artillery or grenadiers, and they don't. And nobody portrays them as using gas, because everyone's afraid to portray them using gas, because it would interfere with what what the visual is or what the story is, because gas is annoying, gas is very frustrating, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they literally wear Seaburn all the time. This is how I can tell where your military interests are, because I say NBC because I'm a tank guy. You say Seaburn because you're a military, because you're an infantry person. I caught you. I know my differences. There's a difference between NBC and Seaburn. NBC is for tanks, baby. That's the old-fashioned one, back when it used to be lead-lined Shermans and wrapping everything in lead and covering all the portholes and shit with plastic and putting big plastic bags on the radiators and fans. Those good old days when we were going to fight the Soviet Union in a cloud of radioactive smoke. Ah, the good old days, where I didn't have to not wear a beard because they think that I can't put a gas mask on over it. Idiots. I don't know. I keep seeing things about people saying, you can put a gas mask on with Seaburn, or you can't put Seaburn on with a beard. You can put Seaburn on with a beard. You can. And I see all these people who are like high-speed ops people who are like sliding around their gas masks with a beard on, or, yeah, the nuclear army days. Some of the absolute best days, may I add. By the way, interesting thing, I was talking with a friend recently. I was like, man, I wonder what they did with all that stuff. And he's like, oh no, it's still there. Literally, the Davy Crockett is just waiting to be re-employed because they haven't needed it yet. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean re-employed? It's like active? And he's like, yeah, no, it's just a live nuclear warhead sitting in a museum somewhere. Or like, it's packed but not primed, basically. And I'm like, So it's still on the table. He's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, it's still on the table. Absolutely. And I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. Because the more common thing are like the W9 and W21 nuclear artillery shells, and those are for 280 millimeter guns, but we also have other tactical nuclear weapons. And I think one of my favorite ones, I do love the W9 out of the 280 millimeter shell, but I believe they were working on a very small one for the 155, but I actually don't know if it ever reached conclusion. But yeah, plenty of bombs, plenty of other stuff exists, which were just as good, if not, slightly better. Tactical weapons, they're always going to have some flaws and some advantages. But yeah, oh man, that's another thing that I really like. 40k nuclear weapons. They don't get a lot of play, but honestly, I think if a Chaos Force... Oh, no, actually, I have a great example of this. Chaos Forces that... yeah, they wanted to do the Iowa class ships. I had a really good idea related to the Iowa class. It was basically a concept ship to bring back the spirit of the battleship without costing, the insane upkeep of the Iowa. Essentially, the idea was you take a standard U.S. freighter ship, and then you hull it out and put like a 800 millimeter cannon in like dead center with like the ability to raise and lower maybe 30 degrees based on the breach. And then you use that for shore artillery. And I was like, why not do that? And basically the answer is its accuracy would be terrible. However, I still think it's a cool idea. And I think that it would be a very cheap way of providing long-range fire support. And also, because missiles are so darn expensive, we use cruise missiles for everything now. For everything. Yeah, Carl's Gustav on a ship. Literally that. Literally exactly that. Originally, my idea was to put it into a submarine, which, admittedly, now, with a little bit more military knowledge, I realize how silly that concept was. I still think it's cool. Oh, you son of a bitch, I know who you are. Yes, you know I'm talking about this. Yeah, this is the gentleman who I was sharing it with. You want 20? Of the submarine ones, or of the, of the other ones? Because I'm going to be honest, the submarine ones are probably not going to float. They're too heavy. But the freighter ones, those could probably float, and I think it would be pretty reasonable to say that they could also fire, if not on the move, at least with some decent speed to them, so to speak. All right, one of these, one of these, one of these, and I think that's good. Literally, we just have entirely scout. Yes to both. See, I was thinking about it. I actually measured out the length of the barrel for a 600 millimeter cannon, and it fits very well into one of our main freighter ships. And if you gave it a little bit of play, like a 30-degree movement, you could put a lot of shells in there. It would be very lightweight, incredibly cheap, and my favorite thing, if you made the barrel fixed, you would get rid of one of the biggest issues with railway guns, which is excessive wear on the barrel. Because effectively, you would be able to switch out sections of barrel instead of replacing the entire thing or some internal barrel sleeve. You would just, this section is wearing, this section is breaking, pop it out, put another one in. It would be something like a 600 millimeter tube pipe, essentially. And the range, while it is only going to be like a third to 1/8 of a ballistic missile's range, you could easily throw something 10, 20, 30, or sorry, you could easily throw something up to 100 miles away. Because the Paris gun fires accurately, quote-unquote, out to 75 miles. And that was completely useless in Europe at the time they were built. You are wrong. Absolutely wrong. They are not useless, and they were not useless. They just happened to be very, very expensive for the time, and the barrels are what people complained about. Or at least that was the initial complaint. They were relatively accurate as well. Relatively. Holy hell, that's a really good item. Holy. Ooh, nice. See, I need another hero so that I can get even better armor. Pendant of Slaanesh. Yep, getting the Potion of Healing. God container ship, but every container has a cruise missile inside. I mean, you're basically just describing one of those stupid Russian cruisers. What is the one that just recently went down? The Moskva? Yeah. You're basically describing that. That was the idea with the Moskva. You take a cruiser or a large cruiser-sized vessel, and you just absolutely cover it in ballistic missiles or cruise missiles. Or in that case, it was anti-ship missiles, but still. And you just pound it with those. I think it had 18 of them on in total, or maybe on either side. It was a pretty solid number of missiles. Good job when they can actually go on the tracks. Okay, you with your different gauges of track, get out of here. They managed to get all the way to Leningrad. If that is not an indicator of them being able to adjust the track distance, I don't know what is. Also, by the way, they came with entire Cardras designed to lay down new track for them to do things like adjust elevation and adjust angle. It wasn't designed to fire off the tracks. It was designed to fire off of a sub-track that was set up and essentially spliced into the main line, where it would fire from that direction at the elevation that the gun carriage was at. The biggest problem was the fact that the barrels had so much wear, and they would wear through, and they were very expensive to replace. Modern metallurgy, modern technology with barrels and guns have come really, really far, and in my opinion, you'd be able to make one that didn't have that issue, or at least didn't suffer from it as much. I'm gonna be honest with you, I think I absolutely crush Altdorf. I know I have literally 4 infantry units, but I think I win. I think I'd win. I'm built quite differently. I might be built wrong, but I am indeed built different. Alrighty. So, opinion on the kamikaze naval drones being used recently? Genius. I mean, it's the Japanese manned submarine, but, you know, you've taken the man part away. Which was a solid idea, because nobody wants to die. They're a great plan. I mean, there will be countermeasures to them, obviously. I think the best idea would be to go back to having hulls that have some decent protection. Nowadays, we treat boats like they're made of glass, essentially because they're not expected to withstand any of the weapons that are going to be used against them that are real anti-ship weapons. I think with those naval drones, what's going to happen is more and more commonly, naval ships, especially of larger nations, will be built with, on the Confederacy name. Look, it's not a Confederacy idea, though. It isn't, though. It's not. Oh my god. Orcs just almost killed me. I was just almost killed by orcs. What a crime. Also, I just gave the orcs Altdorf. That is hilarious. But yeah, I think that the result is going to be that modern naval ships are going to start being built with larger or with composite hulls. Essentially, back in the day when we used to have really good torpedo protection, you know, air hulls and like bubbles in the hull that would prevent a ton of damage from torpedo explosions. Yeah, we're going to be going back to that concept. Is my theory. I could be entirely wrong, but that is what I think. Because that would be the cheapest way to make sure that that kind of Oh yeah, the unintentional suicide sub. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, the Hunley. That was actually not what I was thinking. I was thinking about the Revolutionary War submarine that was supposed to attach like a gunpowder charge to a British ship. The first ever submarine, because for some reason, Americans keep making submarines when the rest of the world doesn't even understand what they are yet. How are we doing this? How are we such a young nation and we develop literally the most insane naval shit? Like, first submarine, check. First fight with actual ironclads against other ironclads, check. First successful use of a submarine, check. Yeah, it's literally a barrel. The Revolutionary War one scares the hell out of me, because it's not motorized. It's not... No, not airplanes. Our airplanes suck until we fight somebody who has better ones, and then we literally just make a better version of their airplanes. Also, we didn't even come close to first to the airplane game, dude. That's the Russians. The Russians had okay, in the modern day, different thing. I'm talking about like pre-World War II. The Russians had a solid up on us. They also had a solid up. We were poor. We were poor. That's not an excuse. Dude, do you think the Russians after the Russian Civil War were more wealthy than the Americans? They just had like half of their population die in this First World War. Yeah, dude, the Russians actually developed aircraft carriers, very small ones, and a solid aircraft force right before World War II and in the interwar period during the Stalinist era. I'm not even kidding. You could look this up. It's a pretty solid force. You know, it is proto-planes, a lot of biplanes, a lot of bi-bombers and things like that, you know, still canvas and wood, but they had more of them and better trained pilots than a lot of other countries. It's an interesting thing. And their, like, river aircraft carriers were not great, but, like, they were around doing aircraft carrier things basically before anyone else had the idea or before anyone was using them as they were. Yep, I was just watching Animarchy a couple hours ago. I think there was another one like Animarchy who was doing something similar. Stable wanted to... Thank you very much. Yes, we are almost at 300. I'm so excited. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Glad you could jump in. Yep, good night. God bless. Thank you. Yeah. I'm hoping. Yeah. Yeah, there is going to be another video tonight, and I hope you guys enjoy the next poll. Honestly, I blew that Imperial Guard video so quick. I had that up literally before I even left work. I was doing it on my phone at work, and I had it ready, pictures and all, before I had to leave work. Okay, come on. Oh my god, this always happens. Why, though? Why does this have to happen? Alright, so, yeah, this is the issue with this. I just have to... Oh, my lord. It doesn't even let me get out. I have to restart. Shoot. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. Just gonna have to restart real quick. No, the game's not already running. Screw off. Alright, there you go. You're over here. Please work. Please stop being problematic for me. I would appreciate that. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Do. There we go. Continue campaign. Should be reload. Should reload it. Yeah, Soviet anything is very depressing. But there's a lot of good Soviet stories. I mean, some of their music is very nice. I like it. I like a lot of their music actually. I don't speak Russian, but you know, it's very pretty. The Red Army Opera is very pretty. I like those male operatics. They're very nice. I am a minor opera fan. Chaos fan. Well, it'd be some good ideas you put in a theoretical Traitor Guard army. GW would never do it, but I'd love it. Well, technically they did do it. It is now entirely legal, and this is one of my favorite things. I literally go through and I make lists called F Space Marines, and I make a Chaos Space Marine list, and I only take humans. And you can technically make a full-on 2,000-point legal army out of just Traitor Guard squads. Oh yeah, the Red Army Choir is amazing. It's beautiful, beautiful. You can make an entire army out of Traitor Guard squads, Thelgor Beastmen, Traitor vehicles, and none of them are legends. They're legit now, so you can get the... especially because we now have the Dark Commune, which is essentially the Demagogue and a bunch of his bodyguards, which I love. I was so happy when they made that, because it's like, oh yeah, finally, cultist representation. Which, you know, is my entire purpose for being. I am Nadzibar, that is the whole idea. But yeah, theoretical Traitor Guard army units. I think GW would do the cringe thing and make one for each Chaos God. I think that's a really dumb idea. I think that they do that a lot when they shouldn't really be doing it all that much. You know, they treat it like all the Chaos Gods have equal representation in reality, which isn't true. The god that is currently winning the great game will have the most mortal followers, generally. But I think that a couple of units that would be really nice that wouldn't get snapped up by Traitor Legions. One of the big ones, and one of the ones that I think would be most common, would be just militia mobs. So we kind of had these with Poxwalkers, where they were just melee infantry units of like 20. But if they wanted to go all in on the cult thing, they would make them 30. They would be cheap. They would be kind of chaff units. And then what you would essentially do is you would have all of those guys. They would be like cultists, just even worse armed, and you'd have more of them, and you'd be able to buff them up with units that came with them. And they would essentially work like Gaunts and Termagants do for the Tyranids. They're just chaff units that are big and block the way of enemy units, but they're pretty easy to get out of the way. The next one up would be actually like decent mutants. I like a little bit of what they did with their mutants, but I feel like they went way, way, way too far with the mutations. Mutants in 40k can be pretty subtle. And the fact that we don't have a Chaos Ogryn unit, other than that one that sticks around the Commissar, the like Traitor Enforcer squad, is an absolute crime. The fact that we don't have Chaos Ogryns in like squads of 3 like Abominants is so dumb. That should absolutely be a thing that we have. Other than that, I can't think of anything that is particularly important. A solid thing... Oh, well, I'm always going to say, if you want to add a unit to 40k, you should add one of the units that we know exists, but doesn't get any real representation. So, something like light tanks, or light armored vehicles, would be a great idea for Chaos. Like, you know, a Panzer II or an armored car. Why are there no armored cars in 40k? The answer is there are, we just never see them. You know, the best one we have is the Pegasus AF-7V. When's the last time you saw that anywhere? Never. You've never seen it. Basically ever. They're used in some regiments, but the ones that regiments use have frickin' tracks, like completely removing the point of having an armored car is giving it tracks. It's dumb. Yeah, use Ogryns like the Vraxians did. Turbo shock infantry. Yeah, if you like that idea, I did do a whole Chaos Cult Armies video. And honestly, it's a banger. Highly recommend it. Yeah, I would love a light tank too. Why is the Siegfried not a vehicle that I'm allowed to use, GW? Why can't I put a heavy bolter inside of a light armored vehicle like the Siegfried and have that be a tank? Why can't I have a streetcar or an auto car with a heavy stubber in the passenger seat that can transport 6 models? Why can't I do that? Why can't I armor up a rock grinder like the Genestealers do? That's my absolute most insane thing. Why do Genestealers get all these cool vehicles and Chaos Cultists don't? Genestealers have cavalry in the form of Ridge Runners. They have Goliath rock grinders, and they have all these literal vehicles, like actual Imperial vehicles, real things that are canon and exist. But Chaos isn't allowed to have them. Why? Fuck you. That's literally the reason. Why? Fuck you. It's ridiculous. Really. Earliest homebrew vehicles for only war were shitty Soviet armored cars with heavy bolters and autocannons. Give me more improvised armored vehicles for Chaos, please. For the love of God. We have... Because that's the thing. You know, Chaos, it's really cool when we have, like, a heavy weapon or a medium weapon, right? That's a really cool thing when we have, like, a heavy stubber that we looted from somewhere, or a heavy bolter or autocannon. Almost all of those weapons should be in a vehicle. Cultists don't want to haul around heavy support weapons. That's difficult. It's heavy. It's really hard for them to move often, and there's not always Ogryns around to take the weight away. So, every single medium support weapon that they get should absolutely be turned into a technical. Basically all of them, all the time. There's no reason for Chaos Cultists not to turn everything they get into a technical. Yes, Toyota Hilux with anti-aircraft guns. Yes, please. Hell, the other thing is mortars. Why do Chaos Cultists not have mortars? Why? Tell me. Seriously. Do you know how easy it is to make a mortar? Syrian rebels with propane tanks can make hell cannons, but my cultists can't make a frickin' 80mm mortar? Are you crazy? It's a tube with a solid-state rocket and a grenade on the end. It's the simplest set of artillery in the history of anything. And Chaos just doesn't get it, because again, fuck you. It's frustrating, you know? It really is frustrating, because after a while I just have to go, this has, yes, always more technicals. And for real, like, people who say that this is not, like, a realistic thing for Chaos to do because they don't have production, we do it in our modern time with the equivalent of, like, a tire shop's worth of stuff. If you think that average Imperial worlds don't have the ability to repair an engine or to weld metal together, you are insane. You are actually insane. Society does not function if you don't have mechanics around. Europe makes the rules. Yes, they do. Europeans do make the rules in the case of 40k, and they're cringe. They are awful. The fact that the canon is that basically every single piece of technology down to, like, combustion engines have to get babied by tech priests is some of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. And people justify it. Oh, Lord, do they justify it. They call this and that and talk about how many of this there are, and I'm like, how in God's name do you justify literal millions upon millions upon millions of adepts for every little tiny thing? Changing the goddamn light bulbs cannot be something that the mechanics do. Like, I'll stomp my foot down on combustion engines and friggin' light bulbs. Because those are two things that the average human being could absolutely do in 40k. No question about it whatsoever. And I think that people often, you know, get up in a twist about it, essentially just because, well, the mechanics do everything. The mechanics have to do everything. Otherwise, X and Y would be the case. And I'm like, X and Y is allowed to be the case. We can have people have actual, you know, logic and intelligence and do things by physical rules of reality. Not everything has to be this insane power trip for the AdMech. I don't want to be mean about it, but for real, a lot of them do feel super power trippy when they're like, well, the AdMech can just stop the entirety of Imperial society just by waving their hand. You know, just by doing X or withholding services, the AdMech can cause the collapse of an entire Imperial world. And I'm like, okay. And there's no repercussions for that? No, because if you retaliate against the Mechanicus, blah, 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 it'll be the end of your world. Yeah, because there's not 7 other Adeptas that are against that type of abuse. Couple of bicycle repairmen can... Yeah, exactly. 1 million people can make a car. That's the other thing. People in 40k are treated like they're all complete idiots. Like, not a single person has above a room temperature IQ. Like, they're all... You know, I'm not assuming that everyone on a hive world is a brain trust and a total genius. But at the same time, I'm not going to pretend like they couldn't develop something. Some level of technology. Feral worlders were able to make insane stuff with the assistance of, like, one person who knew what they were doing. I don't think Chaos Worshippers are dumber than the average feral worlder. I think feral worlders who literally don't know what electricity is are going to be dumber than the average Chaos Cultist. Because at least the Chaos Cultist lived in Imperial society and knows what technology looks like. Yeah, AdMech mentioned I have been summoned. I am sorry. I went off on a rant about them. But it was a pretty even-handed rant, in my opinion. If I can say so myself. Yeah. I don't have an issue with AdMech people, I just have an issue with the people who argue that the AdMech is literally stronger than the Imperium. And they genuinely believe that. Don't worry about it. It wasn't too important. It was just me talking about production and why Chaos Cultists don't have a ton of stuff that, in my opinion, I think they should. Like armored cars or mobile support weapons or technicals. Like, we never see them, and Chaos should absolutely use them. And everyone goes crazy for when we have, like, a heavy stubber. But then nobody, like, bats an eye about, like, I don't know, maybe putting that heavy stubber onto a vehicle. Maybe like, sticking it on top of a car or something. Chaos Technicals and why we need more. That's a very good way to say it. Yeah, Chaos Technicals and why we need more. Also, car production. It's a big thing. I was like, there are definitely hive worlds that are essentially one giant General Motors plant. They just make cars. Why? People need cars all over the galaxy. Personal transport and transit is a very important thing. People who believe that everyone in the Imperium moves around via public transport. Sorry to burst your bubble here, but most Imperial worlds are pretty big, and they have a lot of distance between things that you might need. And roads are still incredibly common in the Imperium. What do you do on roads? You have vehicles for them. Now, I'm not going to say that the street cars that the Imperium makes are anywhere similar to like a modern automobile, but they are cars. They are personal means of conveyance. Don't tell Henry Ford. Yeah, a hive is like end stage vertical integration. It's just level upon level of assembly lines going up a hive that goes like 3 kilometers into the air. Oh, that would be so funny. Technically, you do have a point. You do have a very solid point there. Also, man, I love how the Beastmen work. Their entire battle strategy is just, I'm going to make this map uninhabitable. Why? Out of spite. Because everyone is mean to me when I was a baby. Shatterstone. I don't know if I want to use Shatterstone. It's not bad. Yeah, it's definitely not bad. And no, I already have good abilities. I'm going to wait because I want Minotaurs and Giants. And also Brayherd, or Best Goreherd. Yep, time to get more Gores. Gores are important. Born to Lead. I think... Ooh, Raining Blood is good. I'm going to get Raining Blood first. Days of Wrath would be nice, too. Admech can beat the Imperium, change my mind. Here, I'll change your mind in like 30 seconds. Where does your metal come from? Checkmate. Also, hold up. Weren't you the one who was talking about the bolt cannon being different from the heavy bolter? I liked that. I was fun, because I looked it up and I'm like, is there really a difference? I looked at it and it didn't say there was a difference. And I'm like, oh, the difference is 5 millimeters. I know it makes a difference, but I thought they're very funny, because I was like, I genuinely did a double take. I was like, oh, is there a really big difference between those? And I looked it up and I'm like, no, not really. It's just caliber. Caliber makes a small difference, but really, at the level of bolt weapons, it's not much. It's not much at all, actually. Missile defense or weapon strength? Weapon strength, because you might be my only melee brawler. Imagine Mechanicus Splinter of Faith who worship early industrialists. Hail Saint Ford and Saint Bezos. I don't know if Bezos counts as like a tech giant. He's not an industrial giant like Ford was. Maybe Carnegie. Carnegie would be a solid pick. The other thing that I would find funny is what would happen if the Mechanicus like tried to go their own way, and then all of their planet's slaves starved to death because there was no way to grow food on the Mechanicus planets. Just something to think about if we want to be going rogue anytime soon. You might want to be able to plant things in your terrible rust-infested soil. Titan bolt cannons are bigger than the standard bolt cannons, but I see what you mean. Yeah. In my analysis, bigger by 5 millimeters, which does make a difference. Also, well, I was saying specifically for the Vulcan Mega Bolter. And I think for the Carapace weapons on the Warlord, I don't think those would be all that much bigger than the Vulcan Mega Bolters ones. Basically, my reasoning was, why? Why take the extra effort to make them all that larger when they're not really doing any role that a standard heavy bolter couldn't fill, right? Like, why make them a 75 millimeter bolt shell if they're just going to be firing at heavy infantry anyway? And you don't need anti-tank. You're attaching them to a Titan. If you need extra anti-tank with your secondary weapons, I think you're using your Titan wrong. I think the Titan isn't doing its job if you have a problem with anti-tank. Maybe you should tell the Princeps to get his head out of his ass and maybe figure out where to put his actual guns. Oh, another thing, I liked the idea of like a remote controlled las cannon. I don't know why, I just found that idea incredibly funny. Because it's the idea of like a little robot brain just kind of turning a las cannon and just going pew. Very nice. Mm. Yep. I like that they do that in Double Eagle, and it was a very, very good part of the book. People love it because it also shows that. Here's another one. It shows that a world could make literal jet aircraft without the Mechanicus' input. End of story. 100%. They made local aircraft patterns that were jet powered, the equivalent of like World War I jets, or sorry, World War II jets, but still jet powered aircraft with zero input from the Mechanicus whatsoever, other than knowing what a jet aircraft was. And I thought that was super cool because it's like, holy hell, you can actually do this. And they don't suck either. Like, they're actually pretty solid in comparison to, Imperial vessels. They're obviously inferior, but they could make them in large numbers, and they could use them as support aircraft. They could use them to, like, support other aircraft when they were, like, doing bombing runs and stuff. They were using them in, like, large groups, like little, what do they call them? Fox Cubs, and then there was another design that they had. That I forget the name of, that was bigger, like a bomber version. The Wolf Pack and the Fox Cub or something like that. Wolf Pack Cub, whatever it was, I don't know. But, yeah, it was a really cool idea, and it was like, oh, okay, so jet aircraft are on the table for things that you can make without the Mechanicus. Yeah, ask North Korea. Some jets are better than no jets. Very true, very correct, absolutely, on the right path there. I like how you're thinking. Great minds often think differently because diversity of thought is healthy. Diversity of thought is actually very important, both in life and in talking about lore. I believe in the power of diversity of thought. Everybody got to think. Everybody thinks differently. Everyone should think differently. That's healthy. Goodness, a lot of people are talking to me today. This video might be a little late, but we got another 30 minutes to go before I do it anyway, so we are big chillin'. Islehart, I wonder. See, I just feel like I have to go and blow the Empire's back out, because I feel like it wouldn't be fair if I didn't do that. Is a believably high level of tech for non-AdMech folks to make? I agree. We can agree on that. I will shake hands with you on that 100%. And then I have talked to other AdMech people who say that you literally can't make a car engine without the Adeptus Mechanicus watching your shoulder. So, explain that one to me. Yeah, that one really frustrated me. I had somebody say that the Adeptus Mechanicus are in control of, like, combustion engines. And I was just agog. I was just so shocked, because I'm like, how could you actually believe that a society could function without the ability to make an engine? Like, do you know how old the oldest human engine is? Let me tell you, it's before the birth of Christ. It's a while ago we had the ability to make a thing that moved by burning fuel. Combustion engines, okay, we had to wait a little bit, but steam engines? We're really going to say that the human mind, with all of its incredible creativity and talent and skill and intelligence, couldn't make a steam engine if they tried hard enough? Really? What a frustrating day that was, believe me. Oh, what a drag. What a drag. But we eventually came to a conclusion, and that conclusion was that I was wrong and he was right, and I should shut my mouth because I don't know enough. You bastard orcs, I will slaughter you. Your lives are forfeit this day. Gnarly Tree Hugga is a hilariously groby name. Alright, now let's really hope that there are not a bunch of Imperial armies. Oh! Karl Franz! Run! Karl Franz! Please, no! I do not wish to meddle with the affairs of my betters, which Karl Franz most definitely is. Yeah, I don't need any of this. I love how, like, all these mechanics got added for the Beastmen, and I've literally never used them, because they suck. Empyrean lost a lot of tech, but the steam engine is not one unless the thing's powering the Mechanicus Dunestrider thing. It's not. That's not a steam engine, I'm pretty sure. Mostly because it doesn't give off any steam. But yeah, that was another thing. I was like, huh, nuclear weapons are not a thing, but our nuclear power systems, and that actually got me thinking, and I will do a video on the power systems of the 41st millennium, because I think, when's the last time you thought about how do you get central power to a hive? Is it a coal power plant that's just really big? Do they have giant batteries? Is it thermal? Is it wind? Is it solar? And I think I've come up with a couple of really smart, or really inventive ideas for it. And you have to do it from scratch, it makes sense that it would be extremely difficult. Yeah, if you didn't know what a car engine was, but think about how a vast majority of Imperial worlds got introduced to the Imperium. By the Great Crusade, with a bunch of tanks and vehicles and things that were clearly moving on their own. Humans are very... Yeah, that's the big one. Geothermal tap. Geothermal spikes. Those are super cool, and I like that idea a lot, and it's one of the solutions that I came up with. The other big ones are solar power and basically giant batteries. And the giant battery one actually makes sense, because there are canonical examples of worlds that export, wait for it, energy! They export energy. So literally, they take in solar energy from their sun. Nostromo kind of did this, but it would take in energy from the sun, and then it would fill up a bunch of batteries and literally ship those batteries off-world as a thermal farm. And it would ship them to other planets. The planets would essentially shove the battery into a hole and then give them the empty battery, and this went back and forth. And it was essentially a really cheap or a really low profit business for the planet. It was a way to like cheaply pay the tithe for a planet that had no other resources. Hives are canonically pro-green energy. They're pro-green energy because they can never get enough fuel because the Mechanicus is hoarding all of it. There are worlds that do nothing but create fuel. Yeah, Mordia. That's the other big one. Title locked. I say Nostromo because the lore says that Nostromo is entirely black, as in has no sun, but I think we all know that if a planet has no sun, it would be a frozen ball of ice. So my theory is that it has a sun, it's just tidal locked and really far away, so it may as well not have one. And thus, for a planet that has barely any exports, it would be like that. Geothermal is just steam engines? Kind of, but the way that 40K does it is a little bit unique. Instead of being geothermal where it heats up water, it converts the heat seemingly directly from thermal energy into electrical energy. So there's no water medium in the way. This big-ass spike just goes right into the planet's core. Again, that's how I understand it. I'm not sure if that's exactly correct, but that is what I've seen. Or what I have understood from the lore. Cygor units, Wolfsbane. Ooh, 10 extra damage against men. Deal. Some hives, to my knowledge, also use giant, archaic, advanced fusion or fission. Yeah, nuclear energy. That was the other one that occurred to me. I was like, huh, do they use nuclear energy? Because, nuclear weapons aren't around. But if you have a nuclear arsenal, or if you have a nuclear power plant, you can make nuclear weapons. Like, you can get a breeder power plant that can make plutonium and uranium, or isotopes of them, and make, at very least, a dirty bomb, and at very worst, an actual nuclear weapon. Or technically an atomic weapon, I guess, but, whatever. The Space Sharks broke one in the Badab War. Yep. Yes, they did. I am not as up-to-date on the Badab War outside of the very start of it and the Tyrant's Legion, because that's what I focus on. But, that's cool to know. I'm not sure how you break a thermal spike. The other thing is, I remember Urdesh draws a ton of energy directly from the volcanoes that it's built into. Because it's on volcanic islands, like a bunch of Hawaiian islands, it basically was getting infinite power and infinite heat whenever it needed it in the forge by just tapping into the literal lava flows that were available nearby. No idea how they kept there from being any seismic activity. But then again, Urdesh is a forge of contradictions. And I love it for that reason. I also love it because, my god, there's some unethical shit that comes out of Urdesh. Example, the AT-70 or the AT-83 Brigand. Unethical tank. I love it a lot. I am a big AT-83 enjoyer. Okay, well, this is a weird battle line, but I guess this is what we're doing. Alright. time to yeet Karl Franz back into the ocean where he belongs. Begone, evil man! Alright, kill the Reiksguard. Also kill the Reiksguard. You are going to go for this unit. You are going to go for this unit. You are going to go for this one. This one. This one. This one. This one. Multiple on this one. Hit that. And then essentially it's going to be... You're getting at the melee. You're getting at the melee. You're getting at the melee. 1, 2, 3. And then you're hitting the Reiksguard. Alright, sweet. So that should make them strong enough to get through this. Luftherren did nothing wrong. You're correct. The AT-83 is another example of the Leman Russ not being the best vehicle for the Imperium to use as a main battle tank. It is a main contender to the Leman Russ tank produced on Urdesh. It is a stabilized, fully armored, heavily armored, essentially main battle tank. It has a lot of the advantages of the Leman Russ, with the only disadvantages essentially being it's a little bit heavier, and it has a little bit different varieties of weapons. So it has certain sponson options that the Leman Russ doesn't. So it can use heavy stubbers and other stuff, but it doesn't have necessarily all of the high-powered options like las cannons and melta weapons, because Urdesh doesn't produce it. Or, sorry, because Urdesh doesn't produce those special weapons, but it does produce the tank in its entirety with a bunch of weapons like autocannons instead. It's very cool. I like it a lot. I am definitely a big fan. It is the older brother to the AT-70 Reaver, and the Reaver is one of the only medium tanks in the entire setting that has a canonical name and has actually been used. And it's got a 105mm hypervelocity cannon, which makes it very cool because it is a frickin' hypervelocity cannon, baby. Don't know what that means. Neither does the lore. Nobody seems to know, but still cool. Out for the night? Yeah, you take care, buddy. Deals severe damage upon expiry. I don't care. But yeah, we're only going till 11. Or, well, we might be ending a bit early because it seems like people are busy and heading out, which is fine. Yeah, Space Sherman. A little bit. The AT-83 is definitely a heavy tank, though. It is a direct contender to the Leman Russ. Unlike the Sherman, which is not a heavy tank at all. Space IS-3? Yep, I'll stick to that. There are canonical images of the AT-70, but weirdly enough, there are no canon images of the AT-83. So, theoretically, you could say it's like an IS-3. There's no canonical images to disagree with you. I usually put it as something between the Malcador and the Leman Russ. Why is it you take Urdesh? Why do I like Urdesh? What do they do, and who are they? See, I feel like you really got to get your research in, because Urdesh is a really big part of the Crusade. When we get to the Sabbath Worlds Crusade, you're going to be hearing about Urdesh a lot. So, the reason that I like Urdesh is because they are a Mechanicus world that has very bad relationships with the Mechanicus, and basically has very few STC technologies, so they have to rely a lot on actual engineering, and on designing things that consumers who aren't related to the Adeptus Mechanicus want. So they are very factionalized and broken up. They also help out Chaos a lot, both willingly and unwillingly. They are a major Forge world, or they were a major Forge world, they aren't anymore, down in the Sabbat worlds. And, yeah. I mean, you want to ask some specific questions about them? I got a lot of information, if you'd like it. I like them because they're not affiliated with like a lot of other Mechanicus stuff, and they kind of have to do everything themselves because no one really likes them. because again, they were captured by Chaos, and they also dealt with Chaos at certain points. You know, their certain houses in their organization literally worked for Chaos rather than be in danger of becoming like financially insolvent. So they would work with the Blood Pact instead. What tech do they use and how do they make it? They use standard Mechanicus stuff, essentially. They don't use a lot of STC tech. They have some of it, but a lot of it is locally designed and produced. They use the same manufacturing and production methods as the Mechanicus. They just cut out a lot of the complicated STC tech that they don't have. And they also work with a lot of other minor Forge Worlds around them, to which they are the major. So you know how Mars has a bunch of Forge Worlds that kind of feed off of their leavings, and do stuff for them in order to essentially get handouts? Urdesh does that, but with really minor forges like Fortis Binary and Airmune, and it helps them out in exchange for, you know, basically being any port in a storm and being willing to, you know, overlook the bad things about Urdesh and its history in exchange for that. They make the Steg 3, the AT-83 Brigand, the AT-70 Reaver, the A-7 Las Carrier. They have multiple Urdeshi regiments in the Imperial Guard, and they are a large island-bound forge. And I do mean island-bound. They are set up like Honolulu and like Hawaii. They are on a bunch of individual islands where their forges are. They have large cities too. Like it's not a small world. It's a lot of different non-continuous stuff on the forge. I like it a lot. They're cool. Yeah, they don't have the luxury of limitless influence and relationships. They basically have to rely on people who will take their business, which is one of my favorite things about them, is that they can't afford to be picky. Which is why all their stuff is like second-hand or discount to the point where it barely even uses any STC tech. Because not only do they not really have it, or not have it available, they also have to pander to like PDFs and like minor unnamed regiments and stuff and be like, well, we don't have a Leman Russ to give you, but we made an equivalent to the Leman Russ, which is just as good, it's just a little bit heavier. If you're willing to take that, and they'll be like, hell yeah, dude, we're a PDF. I'll take 50. Like, they're all on board with it. The other thing is that there are certain planets that produce the Leman Russ on their own. For example, Vergast produces Leman Russ tanks. And so Urdesh doesn't want to compete with Vergast, so they make a competitor. They don't want to compete with the same exact thing on offer, essentially. So they make a discount offer to undercut other worlds. Which is genius Mechanicus economics. Never happens because the Mechanicus almost always have, the monopoly on everything. But what happens when a forge gets kicked out of vogue and they don't have access to all the cool shit anymore? You gotta undercut your competitors, and the AT-70, the AT-83, and the Steg, and the Het-7 Las Carrier are literally examples of them taking ideas that exist within the Guard and within Mechanicus vehicles and making them on the cheap, available for everyone, given to anyone, and the design can be licensed out for big bucks so that they can keep the forge going. Yep. Yeah, well, unlike Styges, it wasn't necessarily unwilling. Some of the houses on Urdesh were a little bit naughty, and they worked with Chaos for a while. And it wasn't a slave relationship, it was a business transaction. And that's what's really gotten them in hot water. That was what really got people mad at them in the Mechanicus and in other worlds was, yeah, they weren't forced into it. It wasn't like a forceful thing. They weren't ordered to do it on pain of death. They did it because it would make them money. And it was a solid investment at the time. And because the forge was so fractionalized and all these houses and folks and orders had different intentions, some people may have made some bad decisions with who to trust with their business. And the result was that they made some very bad enemies amongst the rest of the Mechanicus, resulting in them basically losing their ability to make Titans when the whole, first conflict happened, and then eventually they got less and less business until they started having, no actual STC stuff to work on whatsoever. Because, like I said, STC stuff can often be purchased from other forges, completed, not made yourself, and then you make the stuff around it, like with the Baneblade. You might buy a gun, an engine, and some basic control surfaces, and then you make everything else in your forge or on your industrial world. In case of Aramine, it's a forge. But they wouldn't even get those deals. They wouldn't even get an opportunity to, like, get a scratch at STC Tech. And so they just decided, fuck it. If nobody else is going to help us, and if nobody else is going to look past the unfortunate things that we did or felt we had to do, we're just going to undercut the hell out of all of your competitors and prices. Try competing with another faction that has the same or similar level tech to you, and yet also has absolutely no qualms about undercutting the hell out of you, and you're not willing to work with them to work together. It'd have sucked to take Mars, but imagine the Imperium if the Mechanicus wasn't monopolizing tech. I think it would be... If you can believe me, I think it would be worse. I'm not even kidding. I think it would be worse. Because here's the thing that results if the Mechanicus doesn't monopolize tech. That means Chaos has full access to industrial worlds that have all the power and capability of a real Mechanicus Forge world. You can see why this is a dangerous idea. yeah. No, I do understand why the Mechanicus do some things. I give you guys a hard time for a lot of stuff, but that is not one of them. That's not one of them. Yeah, I'm glad about the monopoly of tech for two reasons. One, it keeps the technology very very blocky, and I like the system that they have with it. I know it's frustrating, but at the same time, my favorite thing about it is that there are things that are just so simple or so elementary that you could justify any Imperial world having it. And that's where I run into a problem with AdMech people, because they're like, no, the technological monopoly is entire. You cannot go around it. There's no way around it. Everything that is of any use to anyone is completely locked down. I'm like, no, that's not true. That's completely not true. I have many evidences as to why that's not true. I have 1,000 evidences as to why that's not true. Here's a great example: the entire Forge world of Urdesh. The entire Forge world of Urdesh. They make discount basilisks, discount Leman Russes, discount medium tanks. They make discount scout cars and armored cars. They make discount anti-tank weapons. They're doing this without any Mechanicus support, and they're licensing them out to whoever the hell wants one. And what's the Mechanicus gonna do? Invade a fellow Forge world? It would be a tough one, especially given that Urdesh has actually built up Imperial Guard regiments. It's built up a whole bunch of friendships with local knight houses. They're not, like, vassal knights, they're not that friendly, but they're at least, like, on speaking terms. So, yeah, I like them a lot because they cut against the grain. And also because they are related to the Blood Pact, because it's the Blood Pact who occupy that planet. Yeah. I understand why it happens, but I also think that it's necessary to remind people the limitations of that embargo on technology from time to time. You gotta keep them honest, because otherwise the Mechanicus guys are gonna grab every single thing they possibly can and just pretend they own it. And that's unreasonable, insanely unreasonable. Another great one, kind of a conversation I had with somebody, is how do you make a train in the 41st millennium? Of course, their position was, well, the AdMech makes the entire thing, and I'm like, why does the AdMech need to make train cars? Why would they ever do that? Is that not an insane waste of resources? Why not just make the engine? Or just make the control surfaces for the engine and then have all the metal or contoured bits be made by an actual world? That stimulates the economy. It helps out with all different types of stuff. Too much info on the true Blood Pact. How do they stack up against normal Guard Regiment? Depends on the generation. Weirdly enough, the Blood Pact in their entire, aka the actual, like, soldiers who are part of the Blood Pact, they never number more than 750,000. Or, sorry, 750,000. 750,000. But that's actual Blood Pact soldiers. That doesn't include Death Brigade, that doesn't include vehicle operators, cultists, all that stuff. So they're really big. When it's the Proto Blood Pact, when they're still working stuff out from, like... Well, that's not all that low. Those are, like... those are heavy infantry equivalents. So they are equivalent to Tempestus Scions. Well, in their design, in actual equipment, they're not that well equipped. But the thing is, that is 750,000 men, all of whom are split into combined arms, armored, and heavy infantry regiments, with guard level or at least forged equipment. From their body armor to their vehicles, they are using equivalent equipment to the Imperial Guard. That's the main thing with them. Also, 750,000 is way more... that is 75 Imperial Guard regiments, to give you a reference. 10,000 is a small size for the heavy infantry regiment that we'd be talking about. And you're going to see very quickly when I talk about the Imperial Guard regiments, I put their numbers way, way, way lower than anyone else's, essentially because I subscribe to the idea that a single Imperial Guard regiment is worthless. They're not designed to be independent or work on their own, unless they are incredibly elite. And the incredibly elite ones go from 10,000 to 25,000. And if you compare the Blood Pact to that, that's 75 regiments. For a Chaos cult, that is more regimental power than any Chaos cult in the history of the Imperium. End of story, end of statement. Insane numbers. Again, that doesn't include the millions of cultists, tens of millions of militia, but I subscribe to similar ideas. I subscribe to the idea that, you can't have men-at-arms if they're not protected by something or if they're not fed by something. So I will never put, numbers super, super insanely high. I think the Death Corps of Krieg are the largest regiments ever, but you see this with the Cadians. Their regiments are, pretty big, pretty beefy by regimental size, but they're still only in the tens of thousands, and they mostly produce line infantry. For the most part. Their armored vehicle regiments are not enormous, but they are pretty sizable. Most regiments don't have that. Need at least 1 million men in addition to armor to defend a system. I would disagree. I would absolutely disagree, especially if you're on the defensive. Think about it like this. An Imperial offensive carried out with Guardsmen regiments will only ever deploy a couple 100,000 to any world at a single time. Again, these descriptions of millions and millions of men being sent to a single world, in my opinion, not accurate. Not accurate whatsoever. Also, by the way, that's just the Blood Pact. There are 7 or 8 other full-sized cults that are way more common than them who are part of the Sabbat Worlds Crusade. The Blood Pact are just the most elite and best organized in the entire history of the Imperium, basically. That's why they have the front line. Also, again, there's a front line to the system. There are warp lanes. There's naval combat going on. So it's all about moving around forces. Not to mention, they do set up planetary defense forces, quote-unquote, on worlds that they conquer. So you say, 1 million men to defend a system. Try 30 million, but they're all just on a planet that they are actually defending like a planetary defense force. That isn't including the Blood Pact. The Blood Pact are actual offensive forces, like regiments that go around and do tactical shit and attack people. Those are mobile offensive units, unlike, a planetary defense force or a regular Chaos force, which wouldn't generally do that. Because Chaos cult armies tend to stay pretty close to home most of the time. Or, a vast majority of the time, because when it's not that, the cult is interplanetary, and that is relatively rare. Oh man, these are a lot of orc error boys. So yeah, that's just like the Blood Pact official, red uniformed, super well-trained regimental equivalent cultists, which is, again, something very rare. I think it depends on the world. Not all planets have a huge, widely dispersed populace colonized. Yeah, that is another thing. I tend to not go with the insane numbers. Like I said, I think a hive will usually have between 1 and 4 or 1 and 5 billion people in it, depending upon the actual design of the hive. Which, cuts down on the numbers that you can use a lot, because, let's be honest, in a military context, you can only employ 1 to 5% of the population in a military force. Anything beyond that, and you will start to destabilize the economy. And, we realized this during our world wars, where a bunch of people were involved, that you can't just rip 1 million young men out of the economy. It's going to tank a bunch of your production. Hives know this. That's why regiments are kept relatively small. A line infantry regiment could be anywhere between 30 and 75,000 men. You got a planet with a lot of people on it? 75,000 men. That's a pretty significant force. That is a huge military. And that's just one regiment. Most planets produce 2 or 3, 4. Big planets that are war worlds and produce a lot of their own stuff? 10, 15, 30. Fuck it, why not? Cadia produces hundreds. And they're crazy. So, a lot easier to defend a hive versus thousands of miles of borderland. Also correct. That is why you have a planetary defense force who are in their, local element, like a guards force, kind of protecting borders and protecting their village like a militia. And then you have another force that is your actual military, whether that's like a mobile regiment of the PDF, who all have armored cars or vehicles or something, or a couple of regiments of elite PDF, who are actually capable of doing a lot more stuff, and they're your offensive push force. You see that in adversaries a lot. I talk about having one force that's kind of a gluing or a battle line force that you kind of expect to take a lot of casualties. They're not really expected to slaughter every enemy that they come across, but they're intended to slow the enemy down, identify where they are, and be more numerous so that they can spread out and deal with people like that. Also, by the way, it is very rare for cultists to get their hands on any armor whatsoever. So the fact that the Blood Pact raised probably hundreds of regiments of combined arms, armor, and heavy infantry is wild. Heavy infantry are the most elite regiments within the Imperium of Man. So for a cult to raise that is literally unheard of. There's not a single other one that I can think of in my mind. Doesn't need to be big if the planet's unified. If the Earth's unified today, the military would shrink a lot. Arguably. But it wouldn't shrink a lot if we had enemies out in the stars. Definitely not. I think our planetary military would actually get larger if we were in an XCOM situation, where there's, evil aliens coming to take our freedoms away, and we need to, deal with them harshly. Show them that it is man who is made in God's image, and things like that. I am a human. I am a big human enjoyer. You might be weirded out by that. What? The Chaos guy likes the humans? Yeah, no, I think Chaos is absolutely a better end for humanity than the Imperium is. 100%. No question in my mind, actually. And people will disagree with that, and I'm totally cool with that, because, God of the Gap fallacy. We have no idea what it would look like, but I think it's a lot better than what we got. Yeah, real XCOM would be millions of dudes bayoneting aliens and not a dozen spec up dudes. Definitely. Which of my many hot takes in the last 30 seconds are you saying how so to? Which of my many hot takes are you saying that to? Because you gonna have to be specific. Because, believe me, that was a lot of takes in 30 seconds. If you're talking about the Chaos thing, how it's better for humanity in the long run, Chaos needs humanity to survive. Oh yeah, Chaos good. I didn't say Chaos good. I said Chaos better than the Imperium. And I say that because I think that Chaos has humanity's quote-unquote best interests of survival at heart. Because without humanity, Chaos would not be nearly as powerful, and Chaos likes power. Now that it has come into reality, it's no longer in stasis like it used to be back during the primeval days. Chaos wants to do anything to avoid falling back into that hole. Even if it meant keeping a vast majority of humanity alive, even as playthings, that could theoretically be way better for us. Not to mention that one of the reasons why the gods are so violent, why they are so dangerous, why they are so hated, and why their manifestations on Earth are so evil, is because it's the perception of mankind. If mankind worshipped Chaos, it would have a very different manifestation. We see that with the original folks from Cadia, the original Cadians with their purple eyes and their Chaos worship. They view Chaos very differently. The Sabbat worlds, they view Chaos very differently. They view demons in this hierarchical matrix where humanity is meant to serve, but designed to serve specifically. So demons aren't like these gods that we should worship. Demons are just pieces of a god, or they are servants like us. And matter of fact, a lot of the leaderships of humanity consider demons to be inferior to them in the Sabbat worlds because they are slaves. They view the demons as the slaves, and they view humanity as servants or as serfs, or if they fight for Chaos, they view themselves as men-at-arms. And they view Chaos Space Marines as knights. They even call the Avenging Angels, they call the White Scars the Demon Knights, or the Knights of the Deceiver God, which is how they refer to them. And I think that view of Chaos, because of course, Chaos is not determined by Chaos. Chaos is determined by humanity's and the greater gestalt of human beliefs, determination of what Chaos is. It doesn't determine what itself is. Chaos cannot say what it is. Chaos can't define itself. Chaos is defined by worship. Or at least it is shaped by worship more so than it is shaped by itself. North Korean XCOM squad charging at AIs with PPSHs and AKs. No offense, but XCOM would never have happened in our modern day. I think there are too many armed people with violent intent in our modern day for XCOM to have turned out as badly as it did. I think it would have been an absolute raffle stomp. Not to mention, let's be honest, who in their right mind would have accepted the giant alien dudes who ended up being snakes as real people? We already think that our politicians are lizards wearing human suits. You're telling me if literal aliens came down to Earth and they looked like the tall men, we would accept them? No way would one of them not get assassinated and be found out. I'm just, straight up, I'm gonna be real with you. If the thin men came down to Earth right now and pretended to be human, no. No way would humanity accept that shit. Not a chance. UFO would crash in rural America and the military would find locals scrapping it for parts. You're right. You're right. I bet you they'd be turning it into a still. They'd be turning it into a liquor still out in rural Alabama. I can understand why we want to enslave the Imperials. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't think that serving Chaos is slavery in the way that people, term it. Because they see service to the gods, and they just go, oh, so you're just going to be turned into meat for the fire or fodder. It's like, you don't sacrifice worshippers. You sacrifice fodder. People who are never going to be able to wrap their mind around the concept of being loyal to the gods. These are gods. Remember, the Imperials see them as, unbelievable, insane demons that could never in any way be worth anything. Chaos sees them as, oh no, that's God. God is real. God is genuinely real. He knows who I am, and he can give me nice things. If the Imperials viewed Chaos like that, or they knew Chaos in that way, they would all fall to Chaos, which is the reason why it's kept lock and key. And the reason why Chaos tends to be so violent is because of that blocker in the Imperial mind that essentially says, none of this is real. None of this can really be happening. It isn't real. You need to deny it. Deny it, deny it, deny it. Believe in what we've told you. Believe in what we've told you. We've programmed you to be this way. You need to follow our instructions, even if it's like this MK Ultra subhumane thing in their brain. It's bad. It's really bad. And it's hard to fix. You have to recondition the Imperials. And it can be done. The Blood Pact do it plenty of times. They take Imperial officers and they turn them to Chaos. Very rarely do you come back from that, but it has happened. Never find the alien guns. Oh yeah, lost in a boating accident. Hardcore. Hardcore. I would agree. Alright. I think that's the end of our talk today. Any last questions before I get going? It's a ray gun, not a firearm. Can't take it from an ATF. Man, my accent's getting too good. Been living down here for too long. Touch of corruption. Yeah, Touch of Corruption is incredibly good. It's just a life drainer spell. Super cool. Alright. Alright. If there's no more questions, I will wish you all a lovely good night.